Have you ever had a moment so profound that everything around you seemed to stop? Not from fear, not from shock, but from sheer, breathtaking wonder. What James did that evening caught me completely off guard, and I've known him for nearly 30 years. The memory is still vivid in my mind. The way the afternoon sunlight poured through the curtains, casting golden patterns on the hardwood floors, the gentle ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway. It all felt so ordinary until it didn't. Let me take you back to that evening, the one when everything I thought I knew about life was turned upside down. James had always been a gentle soul, considerate, introspective. Those traits were passed down from his father, my husband of 40 years, David. I had watched James grow from the time he was 14. Back then, he was just a quiet boy with sandy hair and those perceptive hazel eyes that always seemed to be analyzing the world around him in a way that was far beyond his years. Time flies, doesn't it? Children you once cooked breakfast for suddenly stand before you as fully grown adults, and you see them with a presence that stirs something unexpected within your soul. David and I had built a life together over 4 decades, marked by commitment, quiet disappointments, unspoken compromises, and a long succession of unremarkable days. Our love story wasn't filled with grand gestures or passion. It was steady and routine. David was reliable and hardworking, but never particularly warm. Not unkind, just emotionally distant. Somewhere in the course of raising a child and running a home, we both forgot what it felt like to truly connect. That summer, David had arranged a camping trip to the mountains, just 10 days with some childhood friends, campfires, hiking trails he hadn't explored in years. I urged him to go, thinking it would be good for him. Truth be told, I welcomed the solitude. James showed up that morning, right after David left, saying he wanted to check on me. I hadn't asked him to come. He said he didn't want me to feel too alone in the empty house. He lived across town, but he seemed genuinely concerned. At 45, James had become a remarkably handsome man, tall with a measured voice and a protective air about him that felt completely real, not put on. He spent the afternoon helping me sort through storage boxes in the garage, fixing a broken cabinet hinge, and staying for an early dinner. We ate in the sunroom, the air thick with late summer warmth, the sound of cicadas singing outside. He asked thoughtful questions about my pottery hobby, the novel I'd been reading, and laughed when I admitted that I secretly binge-watched detective shows whenever David was away. There was something different about the way he listened that evening, as if every word I spoke held true significance. I hadn't felt that in a long time. After dinner, I made fresh lemonade, and we settled onto the porch swing as dusk began to fall. I caught him watching me when I reached for my glass. Just a fraction too long. You seem lighter somehow, he said, his voice low, almost as if speaking to himself. More at ease, more like yourself. I felt warmth spread across my face. Absurd, given my age, but undeniable. Maybe I am, I answered with a nervous smile. A few peaceful days can do that. The next day, he came back. He said he'd finished work early and suggested we go to the harbor for lunch. I didn't hesitate. I didn't want to. We sat at a corner table on the waterfront, the kind of place where the server knows your name, and the seafood is always fresh. We talked about the early years of my marriage, and I found myself opening up in ways I hadn't expected. I spoke about dreams I once had, places I never visited, ambitions I set aside when practicality took over. Well, you sacrificed more than you should have, he said, his gaze drifting to the horizon. I blinked, startled. What do you mean? You deserved more than just being someone's constant support. You deserved to be truly seen, to have someone ask about your heart. His words hit me harder than I expected. No bitterness, no judgment, just deep empathy, and something else I couldn't quite name. That evening, he stayed longer than before. We played an old jazz record I hadn't listened to in years. The music floated through the house, filling it with a warm amber glow from the table lamp. He sat closer than usual, not uncomfortably, just nearer. We fell into a companionable silence, one of those pauses that feels right rather than awkward. I glanced over at him and our eyes met. He moved slowly, deliberately, and gently tucked a loose strand of hair behind my ear. The gesture was so intimate, so tender, that I forgot to breathe. I couldn't move. I didn't want to. Not out of fear, but because in that moment I didn't feel like someone's wife or mother or a woman approaching 70. I felt seen for who I truly was. The room, once filled with innocent familiarity, now pulsed with something unspoken, something electric. He didn't say anything more that evening. He simply stood, kissed my forehead gently, like he used to when he was younger, and walked to the door. I sat there long after his car disappeared down the street, my heart racing, my mind spinning. Something had awakened inside me that I hadn't felt in years. Oh, and though I wasn't sure where it would lead, I knew that everything was about to change. The next morning, a strange weight settled over me. Not anxiety, but a sense of anticipation mixed with confusion. I prepared my coffee and sat at my usual spot by the window, but the rhythm of my morning felt off. I kept replaying the previous evening, the touch of James's fingers in my hair, the warmth in his expression, the charged silence that followed. This wasn't supposed to happen, not with him. We were just two people having dinner. The evening should have ended like any other, but then James shared something with me that I never expected. His words weren't rushed or forceful. They came gently in the quiet of the den, but their significance lingered, shifting how I saw him, and maybe how I saw myself. Sometimes life places you in moments where the atmosphere feels thick with something unspoken, and when it's finally voiced, there's no going back. This was one of those moments. Let me take you back to that evening. The day had been full. My cousin had organized a family gathering, and her house was filled with that beautiful chaos only family celebrations can create. Glasses clinking, laughter echoing, dishes being passed around the table. I had been seated next to her son, Daniel. At 30, he had become a remarkable young man, though sometimes I still saw the boy who once built sandcastles in the backyard. He had always been thoughtful, compassionate, and perceptive. But that evening there was something different. Our conversation flowed easily between bites of herbed salmon and sips of sparkling water. We talked about literature and the subtle changes we both observed in our community. As the night wore on, guests began to leave. My cousin was busy cleaning up, brushing off my offers to help. The remaining family members filtered out with embraces and promises to reconnect soon. Before I knew it, the house grew quiet. My cousin went upstairs to grab something, leaving Daniel and me alone in the sitting room. The soft light of a floor lamp bathed the room in amber warmth, and the faint chorus of nighttime insects drifted through the open window. I settled into a cushioned chair, the pleasant weariness of a big meal filling my limbs. Daniel was across from me, leaning forward on the sofa, his forearms resting on his thighs. The fire had burned down to faint embers, casting their soft light over his face. For a moment I expected simple pleasantries, maybe an offer of tea, but instead he sat there quietly, gathering strength for something more. It wasn't an awkward silence, but it held an intensity. Something unsaid hung between us. I brushed hair from my face and smiled gently at him. "You seem like something's on your mind," I said softly. He met my gaze, and there was an earnestness in his eyes that caught me off guard. "There is," he said, his voice low measured. His fingers moved restlessly. "I hadn't planned to say this tonight, but I'm not sure when I'll get another chance." His words quickened my heartbeat, though I couldn't place why. Maybe it was his tone or the intimacy of being alone in the house after everyone else had gone. The world seemed to narrow down to just the two of us. "Oh, what is it, Daniel?" I asked, my voice steady, though a surge of curiosity ran through me. He hesitated and spoke, his lips parting, then closing as though choosing each word carefully. "You've always been someone I could talk to," he began, "as someone who truly listens, who sees me. I don't know how to say this, but being around you feels different. It feels significant." His words hung in the air, delicate yet impactful. For a moment I was speechless. I had never expected anything like this from him. My thoughts raced, trying to find the right response, while my heart pounded with a mix of surprise, confusion, and something else I couldn't identify. "Daniel," I began, my voice calm but warm, "that's a lot to share, and I want you to know that I value you deeply." He relaxed a little, as if my response gave him the permission to continue. "I know it's unexpected," he said, his voice sincere, "but I couldn't leave tonight without telling you how much you mean to me." His words, so simple yet profound, stirred something within me. I reflected on all the times he'd lingered a little longer in conversation, how he always noticed the small things about me that others missed. I had brushed it off as kindness, but now I wasn't so sure. I looked at him differently in that moment, his steady gaze, his quiet bravery. This wasn't the child I remembered. This was a man, grounded in his truth, sharing something vulnerable. Daniel, I said softly, smiling gently. You've always been eloquent. But this is something I never saw coming. He laughed nervously, rubbing the back of his neck. I didn't either, he admitted. I just knew I needed to say it. The room felt smaller, more intimate, as though the walls themselves were leaning in. Outside, the night carried on, but inside, time seemed to freeze. His confession lingered in the air, and in that stillness, something within me shifted. Not an answer, not yet, but a new possibility.